Los grandes eventos deportivos como el Super Bowl de hoy son sumamente simbólicos, lo que demuestra que es posible construir una cultura del encuentro y un mundo de paz. El Super Bowl de este año sea un símbolo de paz, de amistad, de solidaridad para todo el mundo.
Hello again, ladies and gentlemen. Michael Matt down in the catacombs. So, Pope Francis, a man marketed as the most humble pope in history, somehow managed to find a way to get his face up on the Jumbotron at the NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas for the Super Bowl, where some 70,000 people were treated to this Super Bowl message, which I guess it can be boiled down to, may this year's Super Bowl be a sign of peace, friendship, and solidarity to the world. The Super Bowl. You just can't make this stuff up. May the Super Bowl bring you peace from the Pope. May the football be with you, I guess. I don't know whether to laugh or cry at this. It's really kind of embarrassing, in fact. I don't want to make a big deal out of it. But it's almost becoming sort of like abuse of the elderly on some level. To trot the Pope out, stick him on the big screen and have him give a silly message. It's unbelievable. And of course, the Vatican didn't pay a single penny for this Super Bowl commercial, if you will, that otherwise would have cost millions of dollars to anybody else. Nope. The NFL, the National Football League, the same folks who a few minutes later would trot out Lady Gaga to entertain the kiddies at the Super Bowl, they just couldn't wait to give Francis free access to the biggest pulpit in the world last Sunday at the Super Bowl. They couldn't wait. Now, why do you suppose that is? Why would this be? In a world that's busying itself now legalizing gay marriage, aborting entire generations of children, babies, millions and millions of them, declaring war on God, on family, and everything else, doesn't it just seem a bit out of character that they would want the Pope to start the Super Bowl free of charge? I know, I'm an old timer, I'm out of it, I guess. I can already hear our millennial theologians over in the comm boxes getting all ready to pounce on me for this. How could you be so blind? This is Pope Francis eating with the tax collector and the prostitutes. He's bringing Jesus to the world. He loves them. I get this more and more now, no matter what he does. He could make a video where he impersonates Pacino doing Scarface, say hello to my little friend, fall into a face full of cocaine, and they would say he's reaching out to the drug dealers. So again, at the Super Bowl, just as when he addressed Congress last year, the U.S. Congress, Pope Francis now at the Super Bowl once again forgot to mention the name Jesus Christ. It's kind of peculiar for a man who is supposed to be the vicar of Jesus Christ on earth. You think he might want to mention it. It's getting unsettling, in fact, that he keeps forgetting to mention Jesus Christ whenever he stands up in front of the world. When people say, well, he says that kind of thing at the Vatican. What, so we have two popes, the one who talks about Jesus at the Vatican and the one who goes into the world and says nary a word about Christ? What's the point then? Unless the world is going to set up shop or put tents out in St. Peter's Square and live there so then they can hear the Pope finally say something about Jesus. This makes no sense. And then at the end of this video, to the message to the Super Bowl, thank you, gracias, he says.
Gracias.
Even presidents, even pro-aborts, politicians, they can get away with saying God bless America at the end of an address like that. But nope, nothing from Francis about God, just
gracias.
But again, our teeny bopper theologians will tell us that the world isn't ready for talk about God. Not from the Pope. Nope, the Pope is meeting these sinners right where they are. That's what he's doing. He's getting down there in the trenches. He's making a mess. He's stinking up the sheep. He's meeting them down there. But the thing is, folks, he's 80 years old. When is the Holy Father going to start getting this message about Jesus Christ out to the world? What's he waiting for? No Pope, consider this, no Pope has ever been given a spot like this at the Super Bowl. Not even Pope John Paul II. Certainly not Benedict. Benedict, you remember, was criticized and condemned by the world. And really, if you think about it, Pope John Paul was too, in a sense, because of his stand on pro-family, pro-life. I remember one time I was traveling in Amsterdam, And I was really surprised to find out when you'd go into any of the souvenir shops, really obscene postcards and little placards, little, I don't know what you'd call them, postcards, of the Holy Father being sexually assaulted and abused with feces and all of this stuff. They really, in a town like Amsterdam, which was so free living at the time and still is, you really saw that sort of John Paul wasn't as popular with the bad guys as maybe some people had thought. They hated him. And why did they hate him? They hated him because of his stand on abortion and because of his defense of marriage and the family. Now, not so with Francis. Francis gets invited to speak to Congress and out to the Super Bowl, for heaven's sakes. The world loves Francis. Why? Is it because he's bringing Christ to the world? Is this why the demonic United Nations can't get enough of Pope Francis, because he's bringing Christ to the world? Is that it? The Democratic Party, the radical Hollywood left, the NFL now, they love our Pope. Why again? Because he's reminding the sinful world to come back home to Christ? Is that it? He's leading them back to the Catholic Church? Really? Do you believe that? And this is why a pro-abort, pro-gay marriage person like Hillary Clinton praises Pope Francis to the hilt, because he's leading her in the direction of eternal beatitude?
And you certainly don't need to be Catholic to be inspired by the humility and heart of the Holy Father, Pope Francis, or to embrace his message.
I don't know, Rob. I guess I'm just getting old. I mean, why are so many people out there not a little bit more suspicious of what's going on? This is a marketing scheme. We can maybe put the picture up of the man who orchestrated this marketing scheme. He's an American. He's a public relations guru. He used to work for Fox News, and his name is Gregory Burke. And if you want to know why Pope Francis was at the Super Bowl, ask this guy. I didn't actually see the Super Bowl this year. Did you see it, Rob?
I might have checked it on it.
Checked it out a little bit. You know me. I mean, I grew up watching the Vikings, Minnesota Vikings, Fran Tarkenton, those guys. Oh, you don't remember Fran Tarkenton? A little before your time. I grew up watching those guys. I played a little football for Hamlin University back in the day. I love the sport, and so it's a shame to see it being politicized like it is, But then I guess I just kind of got old and cranky, and I just really get tired of the National Football League's political correctness on steroids. I can't stand it anymore. So, I guess we've got women refs now?
That's fun. Love that.
Then, yeah, and women like coaches, assistant coaches or something. Wonder why don't they stick ladies in to play the game, I wonder. I don't know when that's going to happen. Maybe it will. Anyway, so yeah, I decided I'm going to boycott the Super Bowl again, as I've done in past years. Not so much because of the game. I kind of like the fact that Tom Brady is a Catholic, and he's considered a conservative and somewhat of a fan of Donald Trump. I was rooting for him, but because of the halftime show, when I found out that Commissioner Roger the Dodger was going to have Catholic bashing Christophobe Lady Gaga perform at halftime, I said, that's it, I'm not going to do it. I was feeling pretty smug, Rob, until I looked at my phone at one point, and I see it's, 28-3 or something?
Something like that.
At that point, I was like, this is pretty good. And then all of a sudden, it started changing rapidly until we ended up with the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history, and I missed an incredible game. So that was too bad. And I don't mean to get all up on my high horse about this. This is just something I kind of felt I had to do. I got 5 daughters, and something like Lady Gaga, she's such a stain. A self-absorbed creature of the modern world who prides herself, of course, as a free thinker. But really, to me, it seems pretty obvious she's never had an original thought in her life. She's a cultural robot doing exactly what she's told to do. She's a manufactured product, the embodiment of political correctness. And so annoying. I mean, now it's to the point where she hasn't had a hit for a while, Rob, right? I guess. So she's, look at me now.
Look at me, look at me, look at me now.
Some of the antics that she does on the stage are beyond sexual. How would you describe it? They're beyond dirty or perverse.
Right,
it's not
that.
that.
As you get,
Yeah, it's just as bad as you can possibly get. As gross, self-mutilation stuff. There's a scene where she's in a video where she's covered in blood, and she's just really a sad and sick little thing. And of course, she was raised Catholic, which even makes it worse. She was a graduate of the Convent of Sacred Heart, which is a private girls' Roman Catholic school on Manhattan's Upper East Side. So I suppose we could argue that poor Lady Gaga offers still more proof of the effectiveness of the Church of Accompaniment, I guess. But now this poor thing, this creature, has become not only the victim but the perpetrator. I mean, she has elevated Christophobia to an art form. And I guess, with her music video, Rob, help me out, I think it was called Alejandro or something. With that song and that video, which features Lady Gaga swallowing rosary beads in a latex version of a nun's habit. It was a fantastic little video. Show prep for tonight's program, by the way. I feel like I need a shower. It was out of control how bad it's gotten. I'm an old guy. I don't see these things. But yeah, it's worse than anything you ever thought. So it's important to understand that the blessing and the endorsement of the Super Bowl this year included a papal blessing for Lady Gaga. And I think that we really need, as Catholics, to object to that. That's an absurdity. The Pope has an obligation to make sure that he doesn't appear to be given tacit approval to this kind of thing. I think John Paul did some things like that, where they tried to set up certain entertainers for him.
Yeah, Lou Reed, I think, maybe back in the day.
Lou Reed, that's right. Yeah.
I think it was him.
The Take a Walk on the Wild Side
yeah,
guy.
I didn't know who he was, and then I think once he found out, he canceled the meeting.
Right, the Pope. Okay, good point. So John Paul cancels a concert with Lou Reed, or a meeting, whatever it was, based on this man's public reputation. Those are the old days. It doesn't happen anymore. So, now we got Gaga at the Super Bowl. It's the old "I will not serve" bit. This is what people like Lady Gaga certainly are all about. I mean, they're proudly announcing it. This is no conspiracy theory. But in fact, in one of her videos, she stands up on stage, and I'm not kidding you. I'll try to tone down the description because it's one of the most vile things I've ever seen. She stands up there on her stage, and, well, actually, I should say she's more or less sitting down now singing. And she's dressed in something that looks like maybe out of the Star Wars barroom scene. I don't know how to describe it. Some kind of a homoerotic outfit that's just, I don't know what it was. And she's screaming at the top of her lungs that something like, I ain't got to follow none of your rules, or something was the refrain. I'm not going to follow your rules. And as she's doing this, and again, I'm not kidding, one of her dancers repeatedly rams her fingers down her own throat and proceeds to vomit all over the artiste, Lady Gaga. This is where we've come, folks. This isn't Elvis Presley anymore. It's not the Beatles. And as she's being puked on, Lady Gaga is caterwauling, about how she's born this way, or whatever it is. So edgy, so dark. She's a total nutter. And she will do anything for attention now. But, we know that. Rob knows that. Our audience knows that. But what about the little kids all around the world that are fans of this? And what does it say about our society? That this lady is trotted out, there's no legion of decency, or whatever you would call it, to stop her. I mean, can you imagine if Lady Gaga had showed up at a concert back in the 60s? And the police would have literally been called. Remember, Donovan and some of those guys, or who's the "Come On Baby, Light My Fire" guy? Morrison. Morrison used to get in trouble for doing things that were too gross. The cops would be called. And now you got Gaga coming out there at the Super Bowl and doing it in front of billions of people, and there is no legion of decency anymore. You got a stadium full of little kids here, families with their dads and moms. You just got to wonder, who's the pervert predator who said during the meeting for the halftime show prep, "Hey guys, let's bring in that psycho chick crusader for transgenderism and Christophobia for halftime. That'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it? Who is this guy? And why isn't he being locked up as someone who's guilty of mass sexual abuse of minors?" And this is after we were treated last year, was it, to the lovely Beyonce? Love her. Whipping up veritable, race riots at the Super Bowl halftime show. That was a good idea of America's game. Why don't we have a race riot and mimic the Black Panthers, or whatever her thing was? And then Madonna, a few years before that, and maybe we can throw a picture up of her paying. No, you don't want to? That's a good idea. We'll skip that. She's paying homage to her Lord Lucifer, or whatever the heck she was doing. I'm not sure. And then before that, Janet Jackson with her famous wardrobe malfunction. It's been going on for a long time, in other words. And now we got Lady Gaga. I do think it's odd enough to make it little wonder why so many Christian websites are out there now accusing the NFL of outright Satanism for doing this year after year and putting strumpets and hellfire in the faces of little kids and wanting to just come to a football game and watch their heroes on the gridiron. It's just, hang on, kids, it's halftime. Bring out the strippers, the America haters, the devil worshippers, the crotch grabbers, and the baby killers. We're going to have some fun. It's just unbelievable what this country has become. I mean, what's the problem with these people? Is there nobody that says, gee, I wonder if that might be just a tiny bit over the top for Johnny and Susie, 12-year-old in America wanting to watch a football game? I guess not. One thing's for sure, homophobia obviously isn't much of a problem in America if Gaga can stand at the Super Bowl and blast away an anthem in defense of the gay lifestyle and nobody seems to care. So homophobia, I guess, really isn't that much of a problem, is it? Christophobia? Yes, but homophobia not so much. This is why Pope Francis endorsing this whole thing is just so unsettling.
We should mention that this is tame, right?
Great point.
The halftime show compared to what she would normally do. He doesn't know what she's going to do.
Absolutely.
It could have been worse, and he still would have endorsed it.
Absolutely. I think it's a very important point. She obviously was told to clean it up at halftime for the Super Bowl by her standards.
Right.
So, which she did. But Francis took a massive chance. It could have been anything with this woman. And yet they went right ahead and did it anyway. It's a good point. I mean, and again, you can say, well, maybe they didn't know about it. But if I knew weeks in advance, living in my catacomb, that Gaga was going to be center stage for the halftime show, then why didn't the Vatican know? What, Greg Burke missed the memo? Francis wasn't aware of what he would essentially be blessing from high atop that Jumbotron in front of God and everybody at the Super Bowl? I don't think so. These guys got to be kind of careful with what they do with their endorsement and their brand. I think they knew exactly what was going on here. Obviously they did. Is this what His Holiness means by, quote, a culture of encounter and a world of peace? Take a look.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. 1, 2, 3. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby.
What do you say? Is Francis okay with this? I mean, a couple billion people watching the Super Bowl around the world have no reason to think that the Pope is not okay with this. After all, he made an appearance. Friends, it is time to wake up. Let me get to the point of this program tonight. Gaga can do whatever Gaga can do. I mean, that's like, we're in the catacombs. I don't know if the Christians were chronicling what sort of terrible things were happening at the Coliseum at the program on Friday night. Probably not. So I'm not trying to do an expose of Gaga. We're living through an apocalyptic moment right now. I don't know if it's end times. It certainly seems like it, but it certainly is like times no one's ever seen. This is a pope like no one has ever seen. I mean, this is the stuff of heavenly warning and biblical prophecy, the abomination of desolation, standing in the holy place, and all of that. Now, you may not want to believe this. Tell you the truth, Rob and I don't want to believe it either. We struggled against this when Pope Francis was first elected. We defended him for months, maybe a year. We did a program right down here, defending him, waiting to see, let the grace of office take its effect, if you will.
You know, there's been we've already noticed a lot of kind of sort of combing of the internet to find the very worst possible images and events in which Pope Francis had been involved with before. And as important as it is to find background information, it's also very important, I would imagine, to factor in the grace of office, the fact that the Holy Spirit is involved with this, and to hope for the best.
But now there's no way of denying this. There's no way of defending the indefensible anymore. This is happening, in other words, whether we like it or not. And we all need to wake up. We need to man up. We need to get our heads out of the sand and face the reality. And this reality isn't pleasant. It's a reality that so many brainwashed Catholics won't see. I think we're talking about mass brainwashing. When you look at the antics of Lady Gaga, for example, clearly the world has been brainwashed to accept that which is insane and deeply, deeply perverse and immoral as the new normal. So brainwashing is not an extreme term or an extreme way of describing this. We've been brainwashed to one extent or another. Now, people don't want to see that. They can't handle the truth of what's happening in the Vatican and the Church all around the world for the past long time, but certainly since the Second Vatican Council, but a long time before that as well. They're afraid of the ramifications. They don't know what to do with it. I get that. But staying in denial not only will not save you, it doesn't help the cause. We're Catholics. We got to do something. We got to stand together. We got to open up our eyes and see what's happening. We need to wake up and face the facts. Now, the left surely is waking up and facing the facts. They know what's going on. I mean, for example, do you think that what's going on with Cardinal Burke, for example, the four cardinals in the Vatican and Amoris Laetitia and Brexit over in Europe and George Soros and the radical left and the United Nations and the Trump victory now, do you think this is all not interconnected? It is absolutely connected. And you need to find out how and why. Of course this is connected. Just this week, the insufferably liberal New York Times published an article by Jason Horowitz entitled, "Steve Bannon Carries Battle to Another Influential Hub, the Vatican," end quote. Now, in this article, he admits what millions of neo-Catholics are simply refusing to admit, that a leftist liberal now sits on the throne of St. Peter. I don't like it any more than you do, but that's what's happened. So the New York Times writes, quote, "When Stephen K. Bannon was still heading Breitbart News, he went to the Vatican to cover the canonization of John Paul II and to make some friends there. High on his list of people to meet was an arch-conservative American cardinal, Raymond Burke, who had openly clashed with Pope Francis. In one of the cardinal's antechambers, amid religious statues and book-lined walls, Cardinal Burke and Mr. Steve Bannon, who is now President Trump's anti-establishment eminence," he says sarcastically, bonded over their shared worldview. Mr. Bannon has made common cause with elements in the Roman Catholic Church who oppose the direction Francis is taking them. Many share Mr. Bannon's suspicion," says the New York Times, "of Pope Francis as a dangerously misguided and probably socialist pontiff," end quote. And that article goes on, and I highly recommend you read it. Totally disagree with the man's point of view, but what he's saying is he's admitting what we're admitting. He's admitting the obvious, that this has actually gone on. They have this connection, Burke, the White House, traditional Catholics all around the world that are coming to the realization that something has gone wrong in the Vatican, terribly wrong, and denying it is pointless. And don't take my word for it. Open your mind for a moment and just ask yourself the question, what if? What if we've all been deceived? What if we've all been manipulated? What if we've all been more or less brainwashed? Our church has been taken over. Catholic Church has actually been occupied, betrayed by those who should have defended her. It's happened before, and what if it's happening right now? What if? More on this, all of this, over at the Remnant. I see we're short on time, but more over at the Remnant newspaper. I suppose a lot of our viewers don't even realize that this Remnant TV is an offshoot of the newspaper, the Remnant traditional Catholic newspaper, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary in the Catholic Press Apostolate this year, by the way. It's the oldest traditional Catholic newspaper in the world, and the Remnant English-speaking traditional Catholic newspaper in the world, and I should say English language. And it has been going to press every 2 weeks for 50 years. So I'd invite you to visit our site, remnantnewspaper.com, and then, with the 100th anniversary of Fatima coming this year now, in 2017, and all of this geopolitical intrigue overlapping with the Church and the Vatican, there's never been a greater urgency, I think, for Catholics to educate themselves, to see the revolution for what it is, and to commit themselves to prayer, especially to the intercession of Our Lady, and to prepare really for all-out war against all things Catholic and everything that is Christ-like. So read the Remnant. Check us out every day on our website, remnantnewspaper.com, for more articles that can help you do that, help you educate yourself. So moving from that now to some good news. Rob, we are not going to close our show out without a bit of good news every time. One of the up-and-coming conservative Catholic colleges in America, Thomas Aquinas College, has announced that they've entered into a preliminary agreement which will give the College of Thomas Aquinas, known affectionately as TAC, another beautiful campus in Northfield, Massachusetts, an East Coast campus. They're in California now. They'll now be on the East Coast as well in Massachusetts. Now, this is just great news. And this is, I don't know, like I say, I'm just so encouraged and happy for them and for all of us that this college and this idea of going back to basic Catholic education and liberal arts and so forth is growing and expanding and now setting up new campuses. So institutions, for example, such as Christendom College, my own alma mater, TAC, Franciscan University, Ave Maria, Wyoming Catholic, St. Mary's. There's a handful of others that are really up and coming and doing just great. So be aware of that. Are they perfect? No, of course not. Nobody is. We have disagreements with them on some levels. And so what? They're doing a good job, and they're trying to be Catholic and to proudly proclaim the kingship of Christ in Catholic education. So if you want to help out St. Thomas or Thomas Aquinas College, which, by the way, offers a traditional Latin Mass every day on campus, go to thomasaquinas.edu and give them a hand. Good morning, Mr. Matt. My name is Andrea Rossi. I live in Milan, Italy, and I'm 17 years old. As you know very well, being a Catholic nowadays is very difficult, above all if you are a student. People everywhere say that Christianism, I think she means Christianity, of course, is a nonsense religion, that there's not hope for humanity nor mercy, But I'm quite lucky and blessed by God because in my school I have got many friends, and with these many friends I can live seriously and we can talk together about our faith and ask each other the question, who is Jesus? Who is Jesus for you? Why is Christianity still attractive to us today? I would like to thank you at the Remnant Underground for your work. In my opinion, it's very important having Catholic media working for the truth. Thank you. Best regards, Andrea Rossi, Milan, Italy. Thanks so much, Miss Rossi. You have no idea how you've made our day down here in the Underground. It's so encouraging, and I'm just so happy that you have a good school and that you and your friends are able to keep the old Christian faith and to continue to encourage each other to never give up. God bless you, and keep in touch. Keep those letters coming, and don't forget about the little white bubble up here. If you like what we're doing down here, don't hesitate for a second to support us. We can certainly use your help, and we very much appreciate it. I'm Michael Matt down in the catacombs, and we'll see you next week.